Everyone at the SEAL training gym thought the old janitor was invisible. He moved quietly, kept his head down, and never interfered with the loud, intense routines of the elite trainees. Most days, no one even looked at him twice. But everything changed the moment the commander walked in, caught a glimpse of the faded tattoo on the old man's neck, and froze in his tracks. Because that symbol did not belong to any ordinary janitor. It belonged to a legend. The CL gym at Coronado was always alive with noise, grunts, weights slamming, boots pounding, commands echoing off steel walls. But in the middle of all that intensity, one figure always stayed silent. The old janitor, known simply as McSesserman. Hale swept the floor as if nothing in the world mattered more than keeping the place clean. To the young recruits, he was just background noise. Some whispered jokes about his age. Others mocked the stoop in his back or how he walked slowly, leaning on the broom like a cane. None of them knew his story. Every morning, he arrived before everyone else. By the time the sun crept over the bay, he'd already cleaned the locker rooms, checked the showers, and reorganized the equipment racks. He worked like a man who didn't mind being forgotten. Or maybe a man who preferred it. But there was one thing everyone noticed. Though they didn't think much of it. A faded tattoo sat on the left side of his neck, hidden 90% of the time by his collar. It was old, worn, and incomplete, like a ghost of something once sharp. The trainees never recognized it. Why would they? They were too young to know the past. The old man never spoke unless spoken to, and most people didn't bother. One afternoon, as recruits were struggling through their pull-ups and sandbag carries, a loud argument broke out near the weight rack. A frustrated trainee, Peterson, who always failed at humility, was shouting at the janitor. "Hey, old man, can't you clean somewhere else?" Peterson barked, wiping sweat off his forehead.
"Are you deaf? Move!"
Mr. Hale didn't look up, didn't defend himself. He simply nodded and stepped aside with tired patience, as if he had endured far worse things in life than the anger of a boy in uniform. But someone else watched the exchange. Someone who noticed everything. Commander Briggs, a broad-shouldered, battle-hardened officer with decades of service, had just entered the gym. His eyes locked on the older janitor, then drifted to the side of his neck, to that faint tattoo. Everything inside him went still. No, this couldn't be real. That symbol wasn't new. It was ancient, the kind of tattoo only men in a specific covert unit received. Operatives from a classified SEAL team that officially never existed. A team whispered about in legends. A team rumored to have carried out missions that changed entire wars. Only a handful of men on the planet wore that tattoo, and all of them were believed to be dead. Commander Briggs stepped closer, his voice quiet but heavy. "Where did you get that ink, sir?" For the first time in years, the old janitor lifted his head. Their eyes met, one pair full of authority, the other full of old ghosts and worn-out pride. Hale said nothing, but the silence spoke enough. Briggs inhaled sharply. "I know that mark," he whispered. "You were one of them, weren't you?" Our recruits nearby looked up, confused but curious. And for the first time, Mr. Hale didn't look like a janitor anymore. He looked like someone who had lived through storms no one there could imagine. Word spread through the gym instantly. Whispers echoed, eyes followed, and even the arrogant trainees suddenly stood straighter. Peterson, the bully, sank into embarrassment, unable to comprehend the magnitude of his mistake. Commander Briggs was not a man who showed emotion easily, but the respect on his face was unmistakable. "Sir, we thought you were gone," he said softly. "I wanted to be," the old man replied for the first time, his voice rough but steady. The gym fell into silence. He hadn't spoken more than a handful of sentences in years. Yet when he finally did, every ear in the building tuned to him, as if listening to history itself. "I didn't come here to be noticed," Hale continued. "I came here because this is the only place left that feels familiar. The sounds, the sweat, the struggle. It reminds me that I was once a useful." The sadness behind his words cut deeper than any medal citation ever could. Commander Briggs shook his head firmly. "You weren't just useful. You were one of the finest operators this nation ever had. You're a legend. Hale sighed. Legends grow old. Legends get forgotten. Peterson, guilt heavy in his eyes, stepped forward. Sir, I'm sorry. I didn't know. But Hale glanced at him, a tired but genuine softness in his gaze. It's all right, son. No one ever does. A Briggs placed a hand on Hale's shoulder. You don't belong behind a mop. You belong with us, teaching these young men what real strength looks like. But Hale shook his head gently. I'm too old for that. No. Briggs insisted. You're exactly what they need. Instead of arguing, the commander walked to the center of the gym and called out loudly, Recruits, form up. Boots thundered across the floor as trainees rushed to line up, still unsure of what was happening. Briggs pointed toward Hale. This man, he announced, is Master Chief Samuel Hale. He was part of a unit so elite it never made the history books. Half of what our modern tactics are built on, he designed. The reason your training is possible today is because men like him survived when others didn't. A gasp spread across the room. Some recruits looked at Hale with awe, others with shame for judging him. Peterson's eyes filled with regret. Briggs stepped aside. Master Chief, if you're willing, they would be honored to learn from you. Hugh Hale hesitated. For years, he had lived as a shadow, hiding from a world that no longer needed men like him. But now, looking at the young faces waiting, desperate for guidance, something inside him stirred again. The fire he thought had died long ago. He stepped forward slowly. The room held its breath. All right, Hale said quietly. Let's begin. His voice carried power, experience, authority. In that moment, the janitor vanished, and the warrior returned. What followed was an entire afternoon of training that the recruits would remember for the rest of their lives. Hale corrected their stances, taught them tricks no textbook mentioned, and explained the meaning of discipline. Not with ego, but with wisdom earned from battles no one dared to ask about. Even Peterson found himself inspired, pushing harder than he ever had, determined to rise above his arrogance. When the session ended, the sun was setting, a golden glow bathing the gym in warmth. Hale stood quietly, watching the recruits leave, feeling something he hadn't felt in decades. Purpose. Commander Briggs walked beside him with a proud smile. They needed you. And maybe you needed them too. Hale looked down at his broom leaning against the wall. This time, he didn't feel small holding it. It wasn't a reminder of who he had become. It was a reminder of how far he had come. Maybe I did, he whispered. For the first time in a long time, he smiled, a small, quiet smile, but real. The forgotten warrior was forgotten no more.